What if you could live in a Bitcoin intentional community where you are living amongst people who you maybe know from the Bitcoin forums, who you buy and sell Bitcoins with every day? You can go to businesses around you that accept Bitcoin, and you can get a job that pays you in Bitcoin. Is that something you would be interested in doing?
I think that we're increasingly living in a world without borders that actually matter so much anymore. I mean, it's difficult to travel, but once you get to places, it matters a lot less. I speak at this from an outsider's perspective because I don't travel unless I absolutely have to. Mostly it's been just to speak at these conferences. But the concept of agorism, and by agorism, essentially I mean of participating in systems that are outside of the normal flow of commerce. So like these intentional communities, if the intentional community has a economy unto itself and people do business with each other in this community, then that is a form of agorism because you're bypassing what would be the standard methods for doing that same type of business. Bitcoin is such an interesting currency because it leverages the global on the one side, but it's also very much about the local. And especially once you get down to the physical Bitcoins, like we were talking about a couple of episodes ago, I think that the chances for doing something like this and yet having all of the advantages that Bitcoin offers in the global sense are really, really interesting.
Bitcoin is decreasing the importance of borders, right? Like you can send Bitcoin all over the world, but you really, if you want to get a hamburger and you want to pay for it with Bitcoins, like you really have to kind of have people around you who are willing to help you facilitate that kind of transaction. So I can see the value of intentional communities and also just living with people who are kind of more like-minded. And if Bitcoin is really important to you, like you might want to be around people who share your love of Bitcoin and the other ideas that sometimes go along with people who love Bitcoin. But yeah, I mean, we see some of these intentional communities coming up. Like, I guess if you go to Berlin or like certain other parts of Germany, there are whole neighborhoods where all these businesses accept Bitcoin. And of course, you know, like Argentina, it's becoming really big, and certain places in the US. And I mean, all over the place, there are these Bitcoin hotspots that are kind of popping up. We've been invited to several Bitcoin conferences since Let's Talk Bitcoin began, but now they're becoming worldwide. Like Argentina, Japan, England, Austria, everywhere has a Bitcoin conference, and it's kind of impossible to go to all of them. Oh, Manila in the Philippines. There's just so many of them. It could be a full-time job, like jetting around the world to go to all these Bitcoin conferences. I think it's a positive sign to see them popping up all over the place because some people just want local interaction, and they're not always going to go to the hotspots to be able to get that.
I spent about a decade jetting around the world speaking at conferences for technology, and I absolutely love doing that, meeting people. And you know, we've had apart from the conferences, we've also had this rich tradition of intentional communities, which exist both in the cypherpunk as well as the cyberpunk and hacker communities, with places like the Chaos Computer Club and Noisebridge here in San Francisco. So there's also this confluence of Bitcoin and other communities that are coming together, just like your Porkfest libertarian groups up in New Hampshire. Here in San Francisco, there's Noisebridge and things like that, and in Germany, the Chaos Computer Club. I think there's a lot of overlapping communities, and I want to visit all of them. So I will happily pack my bags and visit any conference where people are willing to pay my fares to get me to speak with great joy.
And actually, there are a couple other conferences, too. There are two scheduled for Canada, one in October and then another one in, I think it's after the first of the year. And there's one... This morning, I spoke with the folks from behind the Bitcoin Cyprus project, actually, and they're getting ready to put on a conference in Nicosia. That'll probably also be next year. So, I mean, yeah, you know, the conference scene has absolutely exploded, and we went from one a year 2 years ago, and then we started having a couple a year, and now there's literally at least one every month through March of next year that I know about, and we're still hearing about more on nearly a weekly basis. So, I mean, on the one hand, you know, it's great that all these conferences are happening. But on the other hand, I wonder if people are going to get kind of burnt out by them because there are just so many.
I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't think so either. I mean, they exist because people are super excited, and, you know, somebody who's Japanese doesn't want to have to necessarily go to Canada to attend a Bitcoin conference. They want to be able to just go to Tokyo. So I think that makes sense. What we might see is a little bit more of a splitting up of the Bitcoin community, right? Like people are more likely to go to a conference that's more local to them. And so as a result, maybe they won't meet the people that live halfway across the world. But as the community grows, maybe that's the direction it's naturally going to go in anyway.
I think we also have to consider the fact that the general purpose technology conferences, things like Interop and RSA for security and various other conferences involved in technologies and telecommunications and payment systems, have not yet started having dedicated Bitcoin tracks or dedicated technology showcases around Bitcoin and Bitcoin presentations. Make no mistake about it, we're going to be in RSA at the conferences talking about Bitcoin security. We're going to be at the technology conferences demonstrating Bitcoin hardware. So we're going to start seeing Bitcoin also within the context of other technology and general conferences.
So one of the other things that we do here at Let's Talk Bitcoin is we interface with reporters who are from outside of the Bitcoin space and journalists who are outside of the Bitcoin space and are looking for sort of expertise so that they can explain this sort of complicated issue to their audience who has even less context to understand it than they did. And it's been interesting to watch how the various publications have morphed over time in terms of their approach. A couple of months ago, there was a big rush. CNBC and BBC and a couple of other very mainstream publications, they were incredibly concerned about it being a Ponzi. And immediately from moment one where we got on the phone and I started talking to them, the vibe that I was getting from them is that they felt like I was trying to sell them something and trying to get them to put their reputation behind something. It's going to be a big scam that, you know, where I was going to make a bunch of money off of it. And that really has gone away. Increasingly over the last maybe 2 months, reporters have been genuinely interested in trying to understand actually how the system works and why it's something that their readers or their listeners, what have you, should actually want to appreciate. And so that's been a really interesting change to see. The flip side of that, of course, is that a lot of them still really don't understand it. And, you know, you try to use analogies that people can relate to. So, you know, like one of the good ones for describing how Bitcoin as a protocol works relative to Bitcoin as a company, which is what, of course, most journalists think it is to talk about Napster and BitTorrent, because Napster was basically a centralized version of BitTorrent. And BitTorrent is, of course, now the most commonly used protocol for sharing media files on the web, if I'm not mistaken. It has no structure in much the same way that Bitcoin is a protocol. It's a set of rules that one opts into rather than being something where they have offices and have revenue and can be shut down. So the problem, of course, is that then they wind up comparing it to Napster because their readers know about Napster, but they don't know about BitTorrent. So, you know, I mean, there's a real barrier just put in place by the complexity of the situation. And because even the good analogies, the people out there who truly don't understand about Bitcoin probably aren't going to understand the comparisons too, because they simply don't get decentralized systems.
Yeah, that's a real challenge. Like, how do you explain this to your grandma or to somebody who has literally never encountered anything like it before? Sometimes I think the best way is just to kind of show them an example about how you might use it. And those are going to become more frequent as more businesses start accepting Bitcoin and more people are willing to talk to people in their lives about it. But that's a tedious way of spreading a message, right? You want to be able to have a soundbite that you can get out on mass media and describe what Bitcoin is in a way that people can understand. So yeah, that's a real challenge.
I've also had a number of interviews with journalists from other countries, and one of the other problems is that the sound bites don't translate. I think it's more important to start looking at this as being able to deliver an international standard, but being able to deliver it with its local flavor in the local language. And for that, you really need to start building up the local communities of Bitcoiners around the world. So I'm going to use this opportunity to plug the Bitcoin Press Center, where you can find contacts who speak the local language, and the press can that way find someone who can talk about the analogy to Napster in Polish or Hungarian or Finnish or whatever. It's increasingly important to think about Bitcoin as a multilingual system, a multicultural system, as well as a multinational system.
Which is why, absolutely, it's very, very important to have things like the Bitcoin Press Center, where, where people can essentially have a central place to register as a Bitcoin user or as someone who is capable of having these conversations and of being able to speak about it intelligently and making that accessible to anybody who's looking for it. It's like help out a reporter, except here's the central repository. So no, Andreas, I think that continues to be a great initiative, and it's a good source indeed for getting leads towards people who want to learn. Although recently we've seen lots of development in the Bitcoin space, what we really haven't seen is too many new innovative wallet applications. This morning I'm joined by Wendell from Hive. He's working on a Mac-only client that has an interesting business model and kind of a different approach in general to how we're looking at wallets and wallet transactions. Thanks for joining us today, Wendell.
Hey, Adam. Thanks a lot for having me.
Tell me, what is Hive? What's the 90-second elevator speech?
Well, Hive came about basically because my father wanted to get into Bitcoins. He's not a really computer-savvy guy, and I wanted to have an easy way to sort of give him Bitcoins. I've been around the Bitcoin community for a while, and I wasn't too confident about like the longevity of certain web wallets and things like that, and Bitcoin QT and it's maybe a little bit too technical for him. So I sat down and really tried to come up with an idea of how can we make this much easier to use? So the genesis of Hive is how do you give Bitcoin a great user experience? And in addition to that, what we're trying to do is actually help people to kind of know what to do with them. So the thing that I usually tell people is Hive is a great way to get, send, and spend Bitcoins.
So talking about user experience when it comes to wallets, what is it that Hive is doing that makes it more usable or more friendly to new users than your standard, Bitcoin QT or another wallet that's out there?
So I think the main difference between Hive and other wallet apps is that we're really focusing on people and organizations. So, we do local address book syncing, so you get nice images of people. We sort of abstract away a few of the details. We try as much as possible to not show Bitcoin addresses. We make it a little bit easier to step into the picture. If someone that you know actually has a Bitcoin address, you can plop it in there once and you probably don't have to deal with it again as a first step. The other thing that we're doing is actually we are making it really easy to discover Bitcoin merchants. So integrated into the application is a kind of app platform. Well, first of all, you can get Bitcoins. We're building applications around exchanges, and you can also spend Bitcoins. So there are several merchants, for example, that now have applications in Hive. So the idea really is actually, you may have heard people say that Bitcoin's current stage is like the internet circa 1995. Some core technology is deployed, there's a lot of excitement about its potential, but it's also very technical. If you remember those times, finding content wasn't so easy. Portals and search engines sort of sprang up to deal with that problem, and I'd say Hive is similar to that stage. We kind of want to build a bridge to the mainstream user.
So when you talk about integration with applications and specifically with exchange platforms, are you able to share any of that with me? Because obviously in the Bitcoin space right now, that's one of the single largest problems that people run into over and over and over again. Whenever you talk to someone new, the question is, how can I start mining and making money with my computer? And then the second question is, okay, how can I buy them? And that tends to be a kind of hard answer. So, are you going to make it easier, or is this just integrating the existing solutions into a wallet, which to my knowledge has not been done before?
First step is actually just integrating solutions. So, there's a lot of stuff out there, as you know, that can be probably surfaced a little bit more easily for people. So, for example, the first time you run Hive, you're presented with a wizard that basically says, hey, do you have Bitcoins? Do you need Bitcoins? And if you need Bitcoins, it presents you with a list of several options. So there are a few exchanges. So for example, you could use Bitstamp if you want to do a bank transfer. Or we are actually right now trying to integrate with ZipZap. So the idea is that you can have local places where you can actually go and deposit money right available to you there. So you can say where you are and it will just present it to you. So again, to make this portal analogy, we're sort of sticking and curating pieces together to give an overall coherent Bitcoin experience, because at the moment, it's quite difficult to piece together as a new user.
Bitcoin is already kind of a niche market, and it's certainly growing over time, but I noticed that your platform is targeted specifically at the Apple market. Was that a conscious choice from a development point of view? Is this just a first deployment, or what's the strategy in terms of which platforms you're going to be available on?
We kind of wanted to release on Mac and see how it went. We want to target the so-called novice user. The Mac is very popular, especially in North America, and it also actually, right now, whenever I show on the Mac any of the existing Bitcoin wallet apps to, let's say my Mac-loving friends, they're kind of immediately, I don't want to say turned off by it, but the problem is that those they don't really reflect necessarily like all of the Mac user interface guidelines and things like that. And we just saw that as an opportunity as a starting point. But certainly, if there is an opportunity to build Hive specifically for other platforms, then we'll look into it. But the first step is just to see how this goes with the Mac side of things.
You're doing some definitely innovative and interesting things here in terms of integrating other applications into your wallet application, and frankly, being proactive about asking users what it is that they want, asking them if they have Bitcoins or if they want Bitcoins, and then trying to connect those dots for them, or at least help them do it. You mentioned that you have kind of an interesting business model. I'm curious, how are you planning to monetize this?
Actually, caveat this by saying that I believe this will be somewhat controversial in the Bitcoin community. But our first idea was that we would be able to actually take transaction fees from what the activity that happens within applications. I will admit to you that like all of the details of this right now, we're still working that out, like how that would be done, especially since we don't want to centralize. It's one of our mantras is to keep this very, very decentralized. So we're looking at that. And I don't know that that's actually necessarily what's going to be the end game for us, but it's what we're going to be trying right now. The other possibilities that exist within this, of course, are, if we get some traction with it, we can do many other things. But I mean, for now, this is kind of like where we're at with Baseline.
Well, that's certainly an innovative model. I don't think we've heard of anybody doing that. Because you're talking about being almost like a utility here, what type of level would these transaction fees, if that's the way that you guys decide to go for monetization, what would that look like? Are we talking about like a small percentage-based thing, or would it be flat and very, very small, like the transaction fees are now, or maybe it's 0.0005?
We actually think that probably a percentage-based model where it's a very, very tiny percentage is what we'll end up pursuing. That being said, I have, really no idea what's going to be sort of acceptable to the community, and I hope that we will end up actually working with the community to figure that out. This is going to be an open source project, so I'm actually going to be completely transparent about all that kind of stuff, and I really would like to hear from other people about, what exactly it is that they think would be fair, what exactly it is that they would like to see, if they have any ideas about, ways that we can actually build a business around this. It's Bitcoin, so it's all very open and it's all infinite possibility as far as I'm concerned.
I understand why some projects approach this from an open source perspective, but I'm a little bit surprised that you're approaching it given the model that you're trying to pursue, because it seems like the natural next step after you've done what you're proposing to do here is for someone to fork it, as you said, and then to just take off the fees and say, here's the version for free. And I mean, there's nothing actually stopping anyone from doing that in this situation.
Yeah, that's completely true. I mean, people could actually fork this application. Someone could take it and remove the fees and have the free version. But my assumption is that there is enough goodwill in the Bitcoin community to understand, and especially if we're completely transparent about it, that this is how we're going to make our money. That, if you do end up getting the version that actually has no fees, well, you do in fact manage to get around the small fees. But of course, we also hope that the fees will be small enough that it's trivial and that people will want to support this.
Your first version isn't out yet. What's the timeline on this, and when can people get their hands on it and to play around with it? Because I've seen a video of it and it, looks like it functions, at least in the example that you showed to me.
Yeah, we're actually going to be pushing this thing out in mid-September, and the initial release will be really just totally targeting the Bitcoin community. I'll probably put a discrete post on Bitcoin Talk asking for people to test this and kind of telling them what we're up to. And then I hope that we'll have like a broader push, including like the new website kind of at the end of the month. So another thing we're doing that's I hope really helpful for the user is automated wallet backup. As you use Bitcoin, one of the big problems, of course, with like local wallets is that you can end up in a really bad situation. So, for example, myself even, I'm pretty savvy, but I mean, I damn near lost a wallet with a really substantial amount of money in it because I didn't back it up properly. And by the way, this is a note to all Bitcoin QT users. Do not just copy your wallet DAT file. Use the backup wallet feature. Thanks to Peter Wella for recovering that wallet. We're making it really easy to back up your wallet. The process is completely automated. It makes multiple local backups, integrates with iCloud. So your wallet DAT file will be very secure and safe, and you won't have to think about it. And there are multiple recovery methods as well.
Well, Wendell, sounds like Hive is going to be a really interesting product. I can't wait until it comes out and I get to try it on my various devices. If somebody is interested in the project and wants to either learn more or get involved, are you looking for anything in particular, and how would someone do that?
Well, if you're an active Mac OS X developer who's working on Hive projects, please get in touch with me. It's w@grabhive.com. We're also looking for a handful of testers. So if you'd like to be one of the first people to try it out, please go to grabhive.com and just drop your email address in there, and we will send something out shortly.
Well, we really appreciate you doing this open source work for the community. And like I said, really looking forward to seeing what the results are. Thanks for joining us today on Let's Talk Bitcoin. Wendell from Hive.
Thanks a lot, Adam.
More than 300,000 users and counting trust blockchain.info. It's a Bitcoin wallet service and a wealth of Bitcoin information, and is completely free to use. With a blockchain.info wallet, you'll get the convenience of a web wallet and the security of a desktop client. Blockchain.info is also a block explorer. You can use it to see Bitcoin transactions in real time, check the balance of any Bitcoin address, and view many handy Bitcoin charts, all for free. See what they have to offer today at blockchain.info.